NRL Fantasy centers, the worst position in fantasy football, led by the King, Dan Gagai. Look, it is a tough spot this year. You've got to spend up big to get any sort of value in the cash cows. They're looking dry right now. Biz, mate, welcome back. What are you thinking for this year at center?
Look, I've been dreading to record this video because who knows really. But my views on center is that kind of like a fullbacks thing. Centers are just hot and cold type of guys. You just look at the top guys on this. Dan Gagai. Who would have expected him to end the year with a 55 average? Who even had him last year? And even like guys like Tungo and Farnworth, you wouldn't have picked them to be the top guys. Tungo was injured and then he came back and he had this incredible run towards the back end where he went from a 40 guy to a 50 guy. I just think with centers, you kind of ignore the sense behind it. You just predict who's hot, who's cold, who's got an easy run to start the year, and you go from there. But in terms of strategy, everyone's been asking on these videos, how is Biz affording Cleary, Hines, Murray, Haasio? It's because I've got two 250K bangers in my centers right now because I couldn't care less about them. So, Bongi, let's go. Who's hot, who's not?
Well, let's jump into it, right? Hot or not? We're going to do it that way here. I'm hot and cold. Dan Gagai, I'm pretty cold on him to start off. He never averaged above 45 in his career before last year. Can he back up 55? I don't think so. Do you?
No, I mean, by some miracle, he goes 55 again. Great, but I doubt it, and there's not much room to grow. So, no for me.
Paying full price. We don't like paying full price. Isaac Tungo is a little more interesting. So one of the things I do look for in a center option is a guy who's a bit younger and could make that leap. Tungo went from a 42 to a 49 last year, which was that sort of third-year leap for him. Can he make a fourth-year leap? He's only 22. Can he go far above 49? I don't think so, but I do think he could be a season-long keeper at the spot. So for me, you're paying for what you get for. And I don't mind this. I'm sort of simmering medium on this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think also with Crichton gone, he might be more of a focus in the centers, but he'll be a keeper in my eyes. But like, there's no value. I just don't think centers, unless they have crazy unexpected seasons, can average more than 50 unless they're a second rower in available. So pass for me.
Set and forget, but not that exciting. Herbie Farnworth is the same conversation. He's another one. He went from about a 40 to a 47 last year. For me, the gain is done. He goes to a weaker team, the Dolphins. Maybe a bit more responsibility, but is he going to run much more than 160 meters a game? It's a no for me. I'm pretty cold in this one.
Yeah, you're right. No from me.
I'll stop hogging them. Joey Manu, I'll throw that to you. What do you think?
Look, fullback position is where he scores most of his points. If he's a center, he's like 40. Yeah, he's got the nice dual position, doesn't play Origin. Again, I just don't want to invest 640K into a center to start the season. Again, he's one of those potential keepers at the spot, but no real upside.
Yeah, I think it's 42 at center versus like 65 at fullback.
He's insane at fullback.
Yeah,
he's not going to get the best fullback in the game. No, he's not, but he would be the best fullback in the game. Yeah, exactly.
He might be a fullback in France somewhere, which honestly, man, if I was him, going to France, playing footy there, living that up, it's not a bad result. Like, not everyone lives to work. He's going to have a good time there. Val Holmes. Now, Val Holmes is one that's kind of interesting to me. We're starting to get into this sort of interesting territory. In Dream Team, you have a bigger salary cap. So I actually have Val Holmes in my Dream Team side just because they've got some really nice fixtures to open the year in North Queensland. And he's a good player. He's sort of symptomatic of the Cowboys team, and I think he could be one of those guys who surges into the 50s, especially with how involved he is in everything they do.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add on to that is, how he spoke about the Cowboys forward starting slower because the heat up there. It's actually on the flip for like these shiftier players at the back because more tired forwards means a lot more tackle break opportunities. And again, if he's one of these guys he'll probably average 45 again across the season. But in your first 5 to 10 weeks, you could average 55 and you're ahead of the pack. And then you could sell him and catch down to the next center who's getting hot. So, yeah, I can see. I'm not on him, but I can see why you'd be interested.
Yeah. Also, on center strategy, too, you do not want to buy an Origin center in the first 10 rounds. So, if you're going to have Val Holmes, buy him now. So, it only costs one trade when you have to trade him out for Origin. Because if you're buying him in like round 4, round 5, you have to sell him by round 12. It's just not a great equation for you. But the Origin guys, pick him now or don't pick him at all. Stephen Crichton's another one who probably falls into that category too. He is not interesting at all. I think he's the biggest trap in the world, but only 5.6% of people have him. So obviously they're listening to people like us. I look at him and I just think, yeah, career average at fullback is 39. Career average at center is about 42. It doesn't seem to affect his game plan. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would rack up those cheap points at fullback like some of the classic guns have done.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like one of those guys who gets those cheap tackle breaks, that's for sure. Not a huge offloader. Going from one of the best teams to one of the poorer teams. I mean, the Bulldogs are expected to be a lot better this year, but again, like I think I'd rather take a punt on some of the players who are in the 450k mark for the upside rather than Stephen Crichton. But I think on the flip side, the Bulldogs did go out of their way to bring him in, and they might give him like a very focal point in the attack. So there's a world he does really well, but I just I want to wait and see it kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kraz once he gets center is more interesting than Crichton for me, but yeah. Then Zachy Lomax, another big trap. We are going to get to some guys that we don't mind, by the way. But Zach
we're really hating on the centers.
It's just a rubbish position this year, man. Like when you get to Lau, and then you probably lose out on a few points. But this is free. Yeah, look, Zach Lomax, he averages like 29 on the wing. He's on the Dragons. They're not going to score any more points. I hate this pick. 1.7% ownership, so everyone agrees he's not the guy.
I think he could be interesting if he wins that fullback spot, but we've got Sloan named at fullback this week with Lomax on the wing, and that seems like it's where it's kind of going. So skip for me. I think at fullback, he's got the physical tools to be a 50 average guy. He does like the ball. I just think he also loses goals to Flanagan this year because Flanagan's a bit of a sharpshooter and Lomax is a bit spottier. But skip until he shows some dominance at fullback.
Well, he's a hard avoid. This is one I like. Will Penasini. And I wasn't into Penasini until I realized how dire the center position was. But Penasini's the guy I look at and I go, all right, cool. Isaac Tungo last year in his third year went from 42 average to a 47 average. Sorry, 49. Tungo was 21 at the time, turning 22. Penasini is in exactly that situation. So I think he's a guy who looked really good last year, only 21 years old. He'll take another leap this year on the field. Does it translate to fantasy? I think it will because I think Parramatta will be a lot better this year as well. So for mine, you might get a bit of a cut price keeper in Penasini, but it's not ideal. 582k, it's not cheap. So I'm pretty hot on this just because of how weak the center field is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's got all the talent in the world too. He's a big tackle buster. He'll have, well, I think they'll use him a bit more this year. And we have seen examples of runs where he's scoring 45, 50. I think towards the first half of the year, he was one of the top centers, and then he kind of fell off a bit. That comes with young age, right? Like you kind of fatigue towards the back end. He's got another year of seasoning into him. I think he'll be pretty good.
Yeah, he's a beast. And then look, Hamiso. So Hamiso, I'm not as hot on. I just think the try scoring rate was unsustainable last year. I don't think he has the fantasy pedigree for mine. Do you think I'm being too harsh, or are you on the same train?
No, I think he's one of those guys who can get a 50 and then a 20, a 50 and a 20, kind of gets a 35, 40 average. Not going to make you too much money unless you can string a few together. I love him as a talent. I love him as a player, but he's just one of those guys probably. I think there will be one or two seasons where he's just really hot and Dolphins are hot and he'll average 50, but those are pretty hard to predict. So
even then, though, man, priced at 41. Like there's not a lot of juice in that space.
Exactly. There's like the best case. Like the cool thing is that he's dual position, but he'll play Origin. Even if he has a 50 average, you're not even making 10 points, like you said. So, I'm not getting him, but I bet some people, because of the name, will be. So,
20% have him. So, yeah, massive ownership there. Joe Sawali is in 3.5% of teams now. This weekend they've named a pretty full strength backline for the Chooks. Joey Manu's on the extended bench. They've got Dan Tupou and Billy Smith starting on the wing and at center. If Billy Smith bowls out, Joe Sawali could be on the wing. If Dan Tupou balls out, Billy Smith isn't as good, then Sawali's probably at center. Now, for mine, he's a very good fantasy scorer on the wing, and the Chooks team's going to be really good. It's going to be a lot of tries for him on the wing. If he plays at center, he hasn't shown much, but he could still sort of make that leap. He's still pretty young. There could be something there. I know. I look at him and I sort of go, 518k. This could be one of those pods that wins you your league kind of thing, right? Could also be an absolute plotter and a waste of time, but I don't mind Sully at 518k. Well, what do you think?
I know you've come out early in the preseason talking about Sully at wing is just a different prospect, and I know it's a bit counterintuitive because usually being on the wing is worse. But he's one of those players who's a good finisher, is extremely good in the air. He doesn't really have a high work rate at center, so he's not losing much by going to the wing. He just gets more attacking opportunities. Look, I can see it, but like the point is, he's already priced at 38. Like, if he was priced at 30, yes, but at 38, in my head, he needs to average 50 for me to care. And I just don't see that. So I'm skipping. But out of this kind of range, I like the next guy the most. But Sula is probably the second one I like.
They have tough fixtures too to start the year. That's the one thing that's holding me back on him. And he will play Origin most likely as well. So tough one to pick. Tolta Kola then. So you think he's going to make that leap in his, what is it, his third or fourth year?
I think so. And the reason I'm liking him is he just showed last year how much of a threat he is if he's getting the ball in his hands. Like there's a couple of weeks at fullback. Did he get like 100 in both games or something? Like I got him as a pickup, a cash out with 3 weeks to go, and my ranks just flew by pure luck. Right? Like there's no way I would have predicted Call to be getting the fullback spot and scoring hundreds to end the year. But I think it just showed the Seagulls that what a dominant force he can be, and I think they'll be getting the ball into his hands a lot more. Turbo will be back. The only question is, does he lose his spot to Tommy Talau?
Wow. Okay, you've just disgusting. Hopefully not, because look, he's a 35 average and Talau is like a 3.5 average, so it's not a great downgrade for us in fantasy. I worry a bit about Kohler though. So I like the profile. I like the leap. I think he's got fantastic athletic talent. He's really tough. Like he defends like a guy who wants to be there, and he's just so physical, which tells me that we get like you said, when he gets the ball, he's going to be really effective. My one downside here is those 2 big games, they blew out his average. So he was really, I think it was a 31 or a 28 average.
28. It was like 28.5 or something. Yeah.
At center, yeah. So it was something really weak. And I just look at that and go, oh, you have to make the jump. If you're 28, you have to make the jump to 35. That's 7 points. And then also make a jump on top of that. And that's the one thing that I'm thinking. I'll probably stash him in some draft leagues if I get stuck, but I don't think I could do it at 490k. I'd rather sort of take the risk and see. And if his role is really good and he's roaming a bit and he's getting a lot more ball, maybe he's next to Schuster or something like that, and he's offloading a lot too. I need to see something to prove it to me, but he's a good gamble. I've thrown Bailey Simonson in here as well at a very similar price point, and I actually think he's a lot safer than Kohler. And here's what I'm going to throw out here. So when Simonson went to center, he was pretty good, right? In a Parramatta team that was pretty weak, he was scoring a lot of tries, and he has a really simple role. So on that edge, you've got Dylan Brown coming around. You've got Gutherson out the back. Sean Lane running usually a short ball or taking that short ball. Sevo on the wing as well. For Simonson, he just had to run it straight, and often it opened up in front of him. So if Parramatta are good this year, he's going to be a guy who scores sort of at about a 0.75 tries a game kind of rate. And I look at that and go, 473k, you throw in the fact that he likes running the ball. He likes that crab run, little tackle break here and there. He could be a guy who gets to 600k, probably not a keeper, but a guy you could stash for quite a long time, and DPP as well.
Yeah, and he likes to hide yak out of the back end. Like there was a run there. Like I think again, I lucked into picking him up at 340k last year when he got the position.
We jumped on.
We hyped him up. We hyped him up in buy hard sell. Like we were very hot on him early, and he went on this run of 45 pluses and 50s because he was scoring a lot of tries. But he was getting 180, 190 meters a game, which is pretty unheard of for a center because he does love that hard work. And you're absolutely right. And we've seen with Sean Lane, he loves that offload. He loves sucking up a couple of defenders, popping it out the back, creating space. Bailey didn't really have that with Sean Lane last year. Sean Lane was never really there. So you're right. A lot of Bailey's good tries were just running inside lines. And with, Gutherson looping around the back, there was just a bit more space. So now you add Dylan Brown and Lane into the mix with their combination. I think he could have a really good year. I see it like if it all goes well for him, he's one of those guys, kind of like the Tungos and the Gaggais, Farnworths, who can go from this low average to 50 odd. Only problem is defensive work rate really isn't there, but he has a higher attacking work rate than those guys.
Yeah, you can count on that 100%. The other part of look at it too is Sivo is not a great support running winger as well. So if they do start making those breaks on the inside and Lane or Dylan Brown go through, if Dylan Brown breaks through, who's backing it up, right? Gutho is not as quick as Dylan Brown. Simo is actually the only guy who can keep up. So he might get some cheap tries like that as well if Paris start to run rampant. They do have a very easy game round one against the Dogs as well. I say that now, we're probably going to lose that game. But
You've
1.1% ownership. Like, I've actually just talked myself into buying him. He's going to go into my team right after this video. Just massive pod. He's the guy. Must have. That's the call now. I'm scorching hot. I'm scorching hot. The kettle's been turned on. It is sizzling right now.
I've wiped them up. There's no way. I'm sticking with my 250k guys. Sorry,
Now
mate.
I've clicked Waiter instead of Mariner here because there's just so many Broncos outside backs at that 40k mark. But we're talking about Mariner. Anyway, look, Mariner's a freak. He's been really good in the preseason. That's all I'm going to say, right? He's just a guy who has all the tools. And he's on a very good team. If Mariner gets a starting spot, I wouldn't hate going Mariner and Simo because I think they both have that upside to score that 50 plus, 60 plus, maybe even 70 plus game when things go right.
Yeah, I mean, I think centers on good teams are usually a good bet. Like I look at Momorovsky a couple of years ago when he moved to was the Roosters for the first time, and he was the Roosters or the Panthers where he had the gun. Yeah, it was one of them. And I think it was the Panthers actually. He went from kind of nothing, and he went to like one of the best centers in the game. So just being a center in a good team that you can be talentless. I'm not saying he's talentless. He's talented, but like you could be talentless and just fall over the line for a lot of easy tries. So yeah, I don't mind this pick.
And then Zeri.
No.
We won't get a first grade spot round one. 450k, there's not a lot in that. He's been out of the game for a while.
He was never really that guy in fantasy either for me to want to spend 450. Like, how long has he been out of the game? 4 years or something?
It's been a while. Yeah, I think it's 4 years. And
like, I couldn't do it. Like, you'd be pretty daring dude to start with Bronson in your team. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying he can't be great, but am I risking a 450 case? Like a center as well.
10% ownership. He's not even a starter.
I think that's just kind of hype around the comeback. Like, really, like it.
Yeah.
You saw what happened to a guy like Will Hopewade with 2 years out of the game. This guy's been out of the game for 4 years.
Yeah, and Gary relied on speed so much.
Yeah, like he's bulked up a lot too. Like, yeah, he could be stronger. And dude, he's super talented. Like, I still remember that play where he made Gutherson look like he was running in quicksand. I don't know if you remember that play. It still haunts me to this day. But
it out.
Look, just couldn't start with him. Like maybe like 350k, I would have thought about it. 450, no chance.
It's silly. Yeah. Okay. Skip him. Avarillo, a lot of teams being sent to me with him. I don't see it. I don't think he's a fantasy producer. Goes to a bit of a better team. He'll fluke some big games. Like he'll score 14 tries and get 36 points at some point. But he's just not that guy to have an average game and score well in fantasy. And that's what you want out of your centers and out of your fantasy players in general.
Yeah, I mean, he's also been, it's obviously a trial game, but he's been named on the bench. And the thing with the Dolphins is they've got a lot of centers. They've got Tessinu, Avarillo, Farnworth, Lawrence Tuare, like Ewan Aitken can go back there. It's like one of the positions they're probably deepest in. And I think a lot of Avarillo's points last year came from those really long distance tries. Yeah. And those are things you can't really bank on. So at 450k, nah. But if he's one of those guys who starts on the bench, plays a utility role, and he drops down to 300k, and then he gets a starting spot for an injury or form later in the year, like definitely pick him up then. But starting with him at 450, like pass for me.
Spicy cash out option. Paul Almonte next, and he's a guy I'm excited about if he gets a start. Ideal scenario for Alamotti would be he's on that bench and he's playing sort of 10, 15 minutes to start the year. And at some point, a spot opens up and he gets into the starting team as a cash out. That's kind of how I'm hoping it happens. I don't think he'll get around one spot, but I think he has all the tools he needs to be a great fantasy producer. And you chuck him on Penrith. It's a really simple equation, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if he starts round one and I'm willing to pay more than base price for a center, it would be this guy because I think he's like kind of like Penasini kind of mold. He's stocky. He's strong. He's a tackle breaker. He's not that bad defensively. He could get to a 40 plus average, honestly, and especially in a Panthers team where he could just
easily. easily.
easy score over some tries.
I would
So
be shocked if he was under 40. Like,
yeah,
I think he's
exactly.
borderline
I mean, I've
guaranteed.
pretty much seen every single person who fills in at that spot for the Panthers score 45 plus. And this is a very talented guy. So, yeah, if he starts, I'll probably find a way to pay up for him because it's pretty barren outside of this guy. I think he's the one non-cash cow or non-base price cash cow who could actually guaranteed to make you quite a bit of money.
So you're not Justin Olam?
Nah. Did we talk about Olam? He's got a round one bye. He's a great pickup for the Tigers in terms of being a real life player. He'll add a lot of starch, a lot of character, a lot of energy. Fantasy wise, never been that relevant. Going to a worse team, I think it's an easy pass.
Yeah, these are all guys we talked about in Cash Cows. Check out that Cash Cows video as well. But Arthur's, Palau, Kotrick, Trojvic, Strange, Iro, they're all talked about in the Cash Cows video. It's pretty barren.
You're skipping all my starting centers, mate. Can we go back and talk about them?
Tell me about your two starting centers then. Who do you want to talk about?
No. It's not worth talking about. I think I've got Ethan Strange and Ben Trebojevic right now.
I'll throw a question at you then, man. Is it totally insane to say, hey, I'm going to start with the two para centers this year? Will Penasini and Bailey Simonson?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's not my personal favorite strategy, but like you could actually probably, if you pick the right two centers to start the year, you could gain a lot of ground. Well, plotters like me are maybe getting 10, 15 out of these guys. You might pick up Simonson and Penasini and they're getting you 250s out the block. And all of a sudden you've got 100 from your centers and I've got about 25. So that's kind of how it is, right? But I don't think I think there's a lot of, the problem with the centers is you just never know. Like they could be good, they could be bad. As I like, if I'm spending money, I like it to be risk-free, which is why I'm really high on proven guns. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't mind it. Like I've done it in some years and it's worked well, but traditionally I try and avoid expensive centers.
I'm just checking out this player comparison. I haven't used this before.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. Is this new? Like, honestly, I usually don't actually use the fantasy tools too much because I love NRL Fantasy, but some of their break-even and stuff don't even look right.
Well, dollars per point. Like you've got consistency ratings. That's kind of cool.
That's solid.
Yeah, wow. Ownership percentage. Both massive pods. Like, yeah. I might start with both these guys, to be honest. Like, I don't know. If we get a cash cow.
I like Simonson. I think Simonson and Alamotti is a good combination. You're not spending that much. Big upside.
Get the two of them. That'd be ideal. So we're both saying no guns at center.
No. Like I think unless something really changes and all the cash cows disappear by the end of the trial period and none of them get named, like I'm just the highest price center I'm going to go with is like Paul Alamotti. So
all right, we got it here first. Beers saying Paul Alamotti or the cash cows. I think you could look at the Parramatta boys, maybe Joe Suoliti as well, but we're both saying steer clear of everything above about 580K. That's centers for you, so that probably didn't help you at all, but thanks for watching anyway. It was probably pretty fun.
Just flip a coin, guys. Just pick your centers last. See how much money you have left, and then flip coins as to who to fill it up with. If you've got 500K left, if you can afford
your team will look good in the preseason. You can just tease everyone else for having crappy centers.
Yeah,
that's the play. That's the play.
My mates, like last year, I think I started off like 50th after round one, but I had like Harley Smith Shields as my starting center. And even though I started really well, everyone was still mocking me because I had Harley Smith Shields. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like I was still doing well. Like I sacrificed my center to make everything else. Yeah, and when he got dropped and after 3 weeks, it went downhill. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, but it's the aesthetic. It's the aesthetic. Yeah. Imagine being one of the 1.8% who have Tungo.
Oof. Imagine starting with a guy like Dane Gagai last year.
Oh, that would have been ideal. That's what I'm trying to find this year with Penasini and Simo. But yeah, look, that's centers for you. We're doing every position. We did cash cows. We did a team list analysis for this week's preseason games. So